Okay, we're entering part two in this, and we were talking about Noah's flood, how it actually may be stemming from an even older time around the Black Sea, and then that tale was brought with agriculture into the people that we know of as the Sumerians, which gave us the Epic of Gilgamesh idea, and then Luma Elish, which gave us the biblical tale of it, and the connection is it wasn't supposed to happen again, and it happened to Sumer again. So Abraham left to worship different gods, which is quite telling. Let's continue. Here we look at Cro-Magnon man, Paleolithic Europe, in the expanse of where Cro-Magnon man, and here we can see that he was all over Western Europe, predominantly in certain areas, but yet he was also across the Mediterranean. And this shows that he was a seafaring person where they went across and were able to do this, because there's not really very few, if any, sites around the Levant area showing there's more of a collection that goes on here. They're also hooked up with a Rh negative blood type, which is also quite telling, and so on. But this evidence for the flood situation would have happened just to the right out of this situation in the Aegean Sea, leading across the little expanse of land that we have there now, and a bridge leading into the Black Sea, which is all saltwater now, but whenever the sea levels were down much different during the time of Cro-Magnon we're looking at here, all the way up until 8,000 years ago or so, the Mediterranean was not connected to the Black Sea, which it is now, and that was a great flood that had happened. And again, all blue-eyed people can trace themselves to an ancestor that lived around the Black Sea at 10,000 years or so ago. Does that mean that he didn't exist before? No, we actually think that, of course, that was before. It's all stemming from somebody that had this, but we also know that primordial people that lived over in Western Europe that supposedly have more of a Mediterranean skin type thing, everyone they've ever tested had blue eyes. It's a little different variant, so they can't go off of that. So how long do blue eyes go back? Well, they're found in all of these different civilizations, all across Europe and Asia, into the Orient and so on, deified as such. Even Buddha says one of the great things that makes a great man is blue eyes. So this is something that goes back from the Wayback Machine. In the Sumerians, which was shown predominantly there, Rudolf Steiner once wrote, the greatest part of the Atlantean population declined, and from a small portion are descended the so-called Aryans who comprise present-day civilized humanity. Huh, that's strange. Oh, hey, here's an Assyrian being attacked by a lion in one of those Master of the Beast kind of concepts. I don't know if you noticed, but he's a blonde-haired guy. Well, the Sumerians said something just like the Egyptians did. They said they ruled over the black-headed people. Yeah, so this shows you they know different colored-haired people, but at the same time, what color were the rulers that took it over there when we rule over the dark-haired people? These were all Caucasians, by the way. And in Egypt and everything too, but we can find Ginger, the pre-dynastic Egyptian, which has hair like this too. It's a little shorter of a cut, looks a little more Greekish, but he's in pre-dynastic. He's in the Naqada II phase before Egypt even totally founded. We also have Sumerian connections to there, and we saw blue eyes in that too. So strange that people try to say there's different things going on and how it worked and how it didn't work in a modern day compared to what you can find easily if you just look into it. We talked before about the ancient tales of Grimm's fairy tales and so on that we're all familiar with, but one extra place that it's real prominent and brought to a people that look like this before any admix or anything into a portion of the population you see today. And via the name King Darius, tells himself that he's from the Aryan race, and he knew exactly what he was talking about whenever he said so. But through this comes the tale of Arabian Nights, and that's a conglomeration of stories that are put back to each other, much like Grimm's fairy tales. If you look at the ancient story here, they actually tell you that the ancient sultan or king found his wife had cheated on him, and he got so mad he killed her. And then he looked for a new wife, somebody to heir his kingdom, which makes the story weird whenever they tell you that he took virgins each night, and I guess none of them pleased him quite good enough, because he would kill them the next day. So if they ever were to get pregnant and give him a heir, it wasn't going to happen. But in that same idea and guise here, these people took their virgins that they had and gave him to him until they found the one that was Scheherazade. So I don't know if you can make the easy connection here or not, but whenever they make these connections and they talk about this, what they're actually looking at is another tale that's just like that king with a tower, and he's got this trapped virgin, and you would have to kill off this guy or make this situation end here, because he's killing all of your women, and you're going to lose an entire generation if you let this go on. So if it went on, that might actually explain a few things, but if you're going to lose an entire generation, that's going to be devastating to your people. Really is. So Scheherazade, she was able to come up with all these stories, and each night the story was so intricate. This folktale story that she had going on was so intricate. She was the vizier's daughter. That kept her going. And so lo and behold, she lived 1,001 nights, and the Sultan finally said, well, I guess I'll keep you. Dun, 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 dun. The end of the story. I don't know what morals this is supposed to teach women whenever they hear things like this, other than that there was barbaric men and so on. But in another way, it's supposed to relate to you that an idea that old women knew all these folklore tales and stuff like that, that it went through that. It gives praise to women in this concept. I know it looks backwards to you, but it really did during that time. If you look at it here, these women knew these folklore tales, and it's just like the idea of grandma telling you these ancient, tell me about the good old days. Things like that. That really is fading away, and I have fear that's going to not really be in effect anymore in a real short amount of time, due to the fact that the way that everything's got to be politically correct, and everybody's, oh my God, and everything, and women can't be feminine anymore, and oh my God, a bunch of crap I don't want to talk about. But these ancient people here apparently are the ones that spread out the concepts of ancient folklore, and people have traced back many, if not most, if not nearly all, to an ancient people that lived around the Black Sea and Caucasus mountain area. Strangely, that's just where they say that Noah ended up landing, and whenever people started figuring out anthropology at first and figuring out where certain people were and so on, they had figured that the scions of the Caucasian race were actually in the Middle East, and the Caucasus Mountains was it, and that's why they called it Caucasians in the first place, people. But did they just live in the little mountain area? No. But they were all spread out, making those dolmens and stuff like that in the Wayback Machine. It looks like a large component of them came from the Cro-Magnons that were over here in a blend, and then became the people that we've been talking about that were around the Black Sea, which eventually became the Tufians and spread down through Egypt and so on there. But then there was another branch of these same type of people with similar DNA and genetics and everything else and stories that went to these other places and helped herald civilization. You wouldn't believe how important it is to have stories like this, which not only teach morals, which is a great thing, you know, and Aesop's fables and all that idea, but to give you a sense of culture and things that have happened. And of course, you try to relate it back to an elder time and things that happened before and so on like that. Read the Mahabharata and how extensive it is. I don't know anybody that's read the whole thing, actually. Onward. Peace.